guess we're gonna go and talk to them now. They can explain about what was on the recording about each of them.
Now, Rogers, tell us about that extraordinary voice.
It was Mr. Owen, sir. In his letter, he wrote to me to put it on the gramophone once you were all settled in here after dinner.
That was Mr. Owen's voice?
You doubt that it was?
No. I thought I recognized it. I'm sure I'm mistaken.
A disgraceful practical joke.
You think it was a joke?
What else could it be?
I will need to hear more evidence before offering an opinion.
Mr. Marston and I carried Mrs. Rogers to her room. I gave her a mild sedative. She's resting comfortably.
Whoever it was on that recording, that person knows or has taken the trouble to find out a good deal about us all. He was correct about Seaton. I presided at the trial, but all I did was execute a guilty man.
I remember the case. As I recall, there was some talk.
Happily, guilt and innocence are decided by those of us qualified to make a judgment, not by gossip. Of course, there is one omission in that recording. Mr. Narracott, of course. Although to hear Mr. Blore tell it, he might have earned a place on that list had Mr. Owen been so inclined.
Oh well, the doctor's here, so he's the first one I'll talk to.
Any truth to the accusation against you?
It's a matter of interpretation, you understand. But I'd have to say, yes.
Will you tell me how it happened?
Elderly woman. Poor devil. I'd been up all night with an emergency case. My nerves were shot, hands shaking. But I had to operate. I had to try and save her. I had a pick-me-up or two to steady myself, but I bungled it. It wasn't the drink, I swear. It was an accident. Could have happened to anyone in my profession.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
Owen sent me a note, asking me to have a look at his wife, who's been suffering from arthritis and muscle spasms.
What was the gossip concerning the Seaton case?
I'm not one to spread gossip to just anyone about a man as distinguished as Justice Wargrave. If I was certain about it, perhaps. But I'm not.
That is all for now, Dr. Armstrong.
Maybe we'll be able to convince him that he can trust us later on. I'll go and talk to these ones in the middle part of the room first.
Any truth to the accusation against you?
I admit it's a ghastly story, but I can't say it's wrong. Owen did his research well. The accusation is absolutely true.
Will you tell me how it happened?
It was written up in the papers at the time. A story of self-preservation, pure and simple. A hunting party lost in the bush. The great white hunter checks the food supplies, assesses his chances, and clears out on his own.
Leaving 21 men to die.
Not very Puka Sahib, I'm afraid.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
Owen's attorney, a man named Archibald Morris, rang up one day. Wanted to give me 100 guineas to join this house party. I was to put myself at Owen's disposal in case my rather specialized talents were required.
What specialized talents would those be?
You might say I'm a good man in a scrap.
Good evening, Mr. Lombard.
Okay, we'll try not to get into an argument with him then.
Any truth to the accusation against you?
Fellow got hold of a detestable rumor, nothing more. Arthur Richmond was one of my officers. I sent him on a reconnaissance, he was killed. Natural course of events in wartime.
I am indebted to you for your help, General Mackenzie. Any truth to the accusation against you?
About that child, Cyril Hamilton. I was nursery governess to him.
Will you tell me how it happened?
I'd like to tell you. Cyril was forbidden to swim out far. One day, my attention was distracted. I couldn't get there in time. It was awful. But it wasn't my fault. At the inquest, the coroner exonerated me. Oh, and his mother. She was so kind. If she didn't blame me, why should this awful thing be said?
Are you sure you're telling me everything?
I'm telling you all I'm going to, Mr. Narracott.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
I was engaged through an agency to be Mrs. Owen's secretary. Nothing remarkable in that, is there?
A pleasure as always, Miss Claythorne.
And now the judge.
Any truth to the accusation against you?
I remember Seaton perfectly well. Playwright, charged with the murder of a chorus girl. He was found guilty, hung himself in his cell 3 days later, saved the Crown the expense of doing it for him.
Good evening, Judge.
Who have we got left to talk to? There's only 2 left now, I think.
Any truth to the accusation against you?
The name sounded vaguely familiar. I expect it will come to me.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
Got a wire from a pal of mine, Badger Barkley. Surprised me at the time because I had an idea the old horse had gone to Norway. Told me to roll up here.
Good evening, Mr. Master.
Yeah, he doesn't know. He can't remember what his little backstory was about, even.
Any truth to the accusation against you?
There isn't a word of truth in it. Miss Brady was always in poor health. Always. From the time we came to her.
Will you tell me how it happened?
There was a storm, as fierce as the one brewing outside right now when she was taken bad. The telephone was out of order. I went for the doctor on foot, but he got there too late.
Were you mentioned in the will?
Barely. Certainly not what we were led to believe. She was just saying it, you see, to ensure our devotion to her. Beg pardon. I'm not sure what came over me just then. The strain of tonight, I expect, and worry over Mrs. Rogers, of course.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
Isn't that obvious, sir? My wife and I were hired through an agency in Plymouth. Manservant, housekeeper, cook. That's what we are.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
I almost forgot about these 2 by here. Do I have to go back into the middle bit? Seems so. There we go.
Any truth to the accusation against you?
Look, Narracott, if that's what you want to call yourself. The rules have changed. Can't you see that? The past is past. It's the present we should be worrying about. Something is not right here.
Will you tell me how it happened?
All right. Perhaps I was doing the odd favor for the Purcells. But if your brother was framed, I had nothing to do with it. Yes, they paid me to perjure myself about Landor. Thanks to them, I was able to put enough away to set up my own detective agency. Nothing fancy, but I've been straight ever since, I swear.
Landor died.
He got penal servitude for life and died in Dartmoor a year later. Not my fault he was such a delicate man.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
I run a little detective agency in Plymouth these days. I'm on a job. To protect Mrs. Owen's jewels, the letter said. Mrs. Owen, my foot. I don't believe there's any such person.
That'll do, Mr. Bloor.
Last one.
Any truth to the accusation against you?
Beatrice Taylor was in service with me. Not a nice girl, as I found out too late. Loose. No morals whatsoever.
Will you tell me how it happened?
It was some time before I found out she was what they call in trouble. Her parents were decent folk, too. I'm glad to say they did not condone her behavior when I told them of it.
What happened to Beatrice?
Naturally, I did not keep her an hour under my roof. No one shall ever say that Emily Brent condoned immorality.
How did she die?
Not content with having one sin on her conscience, she committed a still graver sin. She took her own life, threw herself in the river. If she had behaved like a decent young woman, she'd be alive today.
You have no regrets?
She made an excellent breakfast. I missed that. Fresh juice every day.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
I received a letter with a signature that was not very easy to read. It purported to be from a woman I'd met at a certain summer resort 2 or 3 years ago. I am quite certain I have never met or become friendly with anyone of the name of Owen.
I overheard you mention St. Trebnik to Miss Claythorne.
I was staying at a seaside hotel near St. Trednick, this same week of August 4 years ago. That boy Cyril Hamilton drowned near there. It was the talk of the town. His half-brother was much older. Hugo, I think his name was. Cyril was a vile child, by all accounts, but first in line for the family title and estates. When he died, it all went to Hugo. He was just about Miss Claythorne's age. There was talk of something between them.
You're suggesting Vera let the boy drown so the man she loved could inherit?
That would be idle gossip. I don't indulge in idle gossip. I've only told you the facts of the case as I remember them.
That is all, Miss Brent.
Oh, very suspicious. Can we talk to her again about it?
The time for talk has passed.
Oh, I guess not. Ah, how do I get out? No. Ah, through this bit by here. I assume that's it. I've spoken to everybody. Or have I? I'll go back up here. Maybe I can look at the gramophone.
Interesting history Shipwreck Island has. I'd studied up on it before I came down.
What are the names of those two people I'm accused of killing?
John and Lucy Combs. I made a note of it.
Must have been a couple of kids I ran over near Cambridge. Beastly bad luck.
For them, or for you?
Well, I was thinking for me, but of course you're right, sir. It was damned bad luck on them. Of course it was a pure accident. They rushed out of some cottage or other. Beastly nuisance. English roads are hopeless, of course. Can't get up a decent pace on them. Well, anyway, it wasn't my fault.